That's the problem with this team. Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, Phillies Insider. This isn't a team, Frank, that lacks talent. They lack self-pride is what – when you lose to a team like the Marlins consistently over and over and over again, year after year after year, with the same core group of guys, there's nobody in there that's just says, we are not losing to this team. That's a lack of self-pride. It's not that they don't have talent. They have more talent to the Marlins. Do they not?
They should. At least on paper they do. And, I think Ricky Vitalico, to your point last night, said on the broadcast afterwards that people were laughing in the dugout down like 6-2. There's not the sense of urgency, it seems, from this Phillies team to really make some things happen. Yeah, they've had some injuries. Yeah, there's been a couple other problems, which I'm sure we'll get into. But really, still, they should have a little bit more fire in them, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I look at this team, it's coming down to they have the talent. That's why they're right around 500, because they simply have talent. But they have no self-pride to be able to say, look, we're going to hand you the schedule says we're handing you 2 out of 3 every time you play the Marlins, and they can't do it. It's prevented them from making the playoffs at least 2 out of the last 3 years, just not being able to beat that team. And if you look back at this season, the way it keeps going, if it's going this way, it's going to happen again. You're going to look back and say, Bob Wankel was on Friday. He said, the Marlins have a 96-win pace when they play the Phillies. Against everybody else, they're a 62-win team. That, to me, is the difference. That's your story.
It's almost like they play down to the competition. We saw that every time. Last night, there's just the boneheaded plays you see over and over again. How many outs are you going to give the opposing team? Poor Zach Eflin, right? How many extra outs did he have to get? Or think about how much deeper he goes into the game, right? Brandon Kinsler might not have to come in, right? So it just seems like their head isn't in it. They play down to the competition. And by the way, the Marlins, I think in addition to that, after all they've given the Marlins are kind of getting some good players in there too. So that's a pretty bad combination of the two.
Well, yeah, after 3 years or 4 years of this, I mean, this is going back to 2018 that they kind of had your number. Their talent is starting to roll over and getting a little bit more mature. But on the surface, they don't have a Bryce Harper. They don't have a JT Realmuto. They don't have I don't even put Hoskins in that group. He to me is just a guy. They don't have Segura. I mean, they don't have a Didi. The Phillies just have more accomplished players than they do right now. They don't have a Nola. They don't have a Wheeler.
Very, very true. I mean, like I said, they've got a couple nice players, and if you give them a little bit, well, guess what? They're going to catch up to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're major leaguers. I'm not saying you should beat them every single time you play, but for every 2, they get 1. That's the way it works for everybody else. And that's why you're not a good team. That's why this team is where they are. And they don't have someone. Bryce Harper's not that guy. I'm sorry. He's a great talent. I don't know that he's a great player. I mean, he's a great talent, individual talent. But the whole package, leader, locker room guy, clutch guy, I don't know that that's him, and that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying, oh, man, they made a mistake bringing him here. That's just not who he is. JT, nice player. Rhys Hoskins, good player. They have a bunch of good players on this team. They don't have that standout, great, elite guy. And if you don't have that guy, then someone needs to be that guy to pull them all together. They don't have the guy to pull them all together.
Very, very well said. They do have a lot of talent, and I think what we see that they don't have that other teams are, they don't have an Acuna, they don't have a Soto that kind of rises up out of the system and becomes that guy. I think, the fact that Bryce Harper came from somewhere else, JT Realmuto came from somewhere else, I think that's kind of contributing to this a little bit, right? The idea that he's their homegrown superstar is just not there.
All right, a couple guys. Let's get to your mailbag questions because some of these, obviously, you had a lot of questions this week. You could have selected from a lot of questions this week because people are frustrated now. This is when, it gets from I had expectations, I had some hope, I like this team, and now this is what you're getting, so people are ready to start firing the questions. So, one question that came in from multiple people, Russell was one, Jim was one. They want to know, young players, Cornelius Randolph's name has come up. The Phillies farm system has nothing to be excited about. Is he one?
It's a very, very good question. When you consider when the Phillies drafted Cornelius Randolph, it was way back in 2015. That was 2 presidents ago. Mick Abel, last year's first-round pick, was in 7th grade, right? So it feels like Randolph has been around forever. And at the end of last season, of course, last season there was no season, but the year before that, he was batting a boring 247 at Double-A, and he's still with the organization. This is probably his last year, and guess what? He is stepping up in a very, very big way. He's hitting 377, including 5 doubles and 4 home runs at AAA Lehigh Valley. Someone hitting like that, this Phillies team could use right now. So people are asking, could he possibly contribute to this team? And I think the answer is going to be yes, either one way or another. Now, we talked a ton about center field over the last several weeks, but very telling thing the Phillies did last week, which was Cornelius Randolph started in center field for the Iron Pigs for the first time ever. So I think the Phillies are starting to think, okay, well, he's hitting now. This is kind of what we envisioned when we drafted him in the first round in 2015. Can he play some center field? Could he be somebody that's on the bench that could come in and spell somebody at all 3 outfield positions? I think they're trying to figure that out now. Maybe they'll be lucky and get a diamond in a rough in this late bloomer, perhaps. But I think whether or not he comes up could depend on where this team goes. I mean, let's face it, 500 team, as you said, if the Phillies do better, well, then it might be harder for him to get on. But if they do poorly, well, guess what? They're going to need to start seeing guys like Randolph because they got to make a decision on him, whether or not he's going to be with the organization or not next year. So he's kind of played himself into the mix. Another injury or two, he could be right up in Philadelphia. But the Phillies will have to make room on the 40-man roster. But it'd be really a nice surprise for the Phillies if they can finally get something out of this draft pick from 2015.
Yeah, that would be nice. By the way, center field, which has been a big problem, has all of a sudden, they have Herrera hitting in the 2-hole. What'd you think about that?
Well, we've said this before. Herrera's highs are high, his lows are low. If the Phillies can't afford to see him go for another 1 for 18 like he's been known to do, right? So his All-Star season, he kind of kept his foot on the accelerator a little bit more, but 2018, 2019, even before he left the team, he had some really low lows and some high highs. So is this him finally figuring it out? The way he got started in the major leagues, you thought, okay, well, he's got nothing left in the tank. He's giving them something. Say what you will about his personal issues, but hey, if he's hitting, you got to play him, right? I mean, he and Segura are the two that seem to be hitting right now.
All right, Frank's mailbag right here on the Sports Bash. What about Bryson Stott? He is the first-round pick, single A, 23 years old. You can go up to Lakewood and watch him, but why is he playing at single A?
It's really interesting. 23 years old, right? That's how old Mickey Moniak is. That's how old Cornelius Randolph is for another month, right? So, but Bryson Stott, when they drafted him out of college, the thought was maybe he'd be a quick riser. They drafted him the year after Alec Boehm, and I know the one question said don't mention there wasn't a season last year. Well, but there wasn't a season last year, so he's only played before this year at the short season Williamsport, which is no longer in the league anymore, and then rookie ball down in Clearwater. So this is his first full minor league season. I think he's impressing so far at Class A Lakewood, Jersey Shore. I guess we should get used to saying, right, is now the name of the Lakewood affiliate. If he impresses, I could see him going from AA to AAA, and then if the Phillies are out of it by September, you might even see him in Philadelphia. So the lost season, it did hurt somebody like him because of his progression. Hadn't got to play that full season yet. I see him starting in Class A at Jersey Shore in Lakewood, and I could see him being in Reading in the next month, even if he can show that he can really hang there. And so far, he has.
He's obviously a future shortstop for those out there, right? I mean, they envision him playing short.
So I, in fact, if you look at what he's doing up at Jersey Shore, he's playing kind of 2-to-1 shortstop to second base, but they are using him at both positions. So I think they're trying to figure out exactly who he is and where he might help the Phillies down the line, and you'll see him do some more of that up the middle later.
Okay, speaking of young prospects, one guy that we were supposed to be excited about, Spencer Howard, came out like gangbusters for 2 innings. Then he initially essentially said he was running to first base to go cover the bag, and he couldn't get his heart rate down. Essentially, he's just saying, I'm out of shape. So is he a starter or is he a bullpen guy? I mean, what should we think about Spencer Howard? This was one young guy that they had in their system that we could be excited about, and now,
And he's the one that, let's face it, they kept over Sixto Sanchez in the JT Realmuto trade, right? So they're very invested in him, but part of the problem has been he has not pitched a lot of innings in any professional season. His total innings in his longest year so far in professional ball is 112. And so the way they've sort of been holding his innings back, he hasn't really gotten the opportunity to go deep into games. I mean, even before they called him up, he was pitching 2 innings, 3 innings, 4 innings at AAA. So if you're not building up his, they say stretch him out, right? When they talk about making a pitcher go deeper into games, they haven't fully stretched him out yet. And if he can't go beyond the second inning without being gassed, well, then you have to seriously evaluate if he should be a reliever or if he should be a starting pitcher. But until they actually let him do it, you're not going to really know. So I don't think they expected him to go deep in that game, that first game, considering the furthest he went at AAA was 4 innings. They're going to keep monitoring his innings. They're going to still try to stretch him out. But I think they really need to know. Well, one, they really need him pitching. That's the bottom line. With Chase Anderson and Matt Moore giving them nothing, they have to let him pitch, and they got to get him stretched out and go deeper into games. If he can't withstand that, he doesn't belong as a starter.
A lot of people, Frank, and we have about a minute here, so I know it's a lot to get out in this minute, but it was Kapler's fault. Now it's Girardi's fault. Is it the manager's fault on this team, or do they simply just not have a good roster?
I don't think so. I think Dave Dombrowski needs a real opportunity to really evaluate the whole roster and put into place what he believes should be the roster. Let's face it, he came in December 11th. That was the date of his hire. He hadn't really done his homework. I mean, he did some homework, but, he didn't really know the system, didn't know the roster, know the players. He's got a lot of work to do, in my opinion. He's got to get this team better defensively and really mix up the offense. Just like you said, this is the same core. They're not getting enough out of them at the end of the day. I think they need to think creatively, maybe make some uncomfortable trades, kind of hit the reset button in some respects.
Real quick, Bowman and Hoskins can't stay on this team. They're so bad on the corner defense. You can't keep them both.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Keep one or the other. Now it's up to someone like Dombrowski to figure out the right one to trade and bring in the right return. I mean, you can't just give them away, right? So they do have value. Maybe if there's a DH next year, you think of it differently, but he's got to do something. He's got to push some different buttons. He's got to do something, I think, to shake this up a little bit because, as you said, same core, same results. They need to be better.
Yeah, this team's been together through the Kapler years. I mean, the core group, Hoskins, Realmuto, Harper, Segura, Nola, Neris, Velazquez, Eflin. There's a lot of guys who have been here since 2018 when Kapler was here. So, this is the same. Yeah, they got a couple new guys, but the same core group of guys has been here. And you would think that should help them to have to play together, that should help this team. All right, Frank Klose, his Phillies mailbag. If you have a question for Frank, at Frank Klose with a K, Frank, K-L-O-S-E, Frank Klose, our 97.3 ESPN Phillies Insider, and he, like guest appeared. He, like all guests appeared, via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, Frank, take care, man.
Catch you soon, Mike.